One thing of interest, it's been 2 years, almost to the day, that we began this class. Can you imagine? 2 years.
How many weeks were you envisioning at that point?
Well, I was,
Oh, good.
we were just starting, it was like, see how it goes. But I'll be honest, I didn't think it would go the way that it's going, and it's been going in a very good way. This is the kind of class that, and I tell people this, Bob, I was talking to Bob Neff the other day, some of you know that name, he's a good friend of mine. We agree, this isn't something you can plan. And one thing that has helped this class be what it is that it's open-ended. See, we've taught things before here, and it was like a 4-week module, a 6-week module, and whatever. And so you have to get a certain amount done. Well, we're not in any hurry. So when we need to step back and process what we learned earlier, if it's difficult and maybe some of you are hearing it for the first time, we do that. And I think that adds to it. And it also helps that when, for those of you who can't make it every Sunday, which is probably all of us, then you come when you can. And then when we are looking at something, maybe in a different way, it gives you a chance to get caught up. But there's no way we could have planned this, and I could have planned this. This is just one of those things that was organic and it has its own life, and it's all because of you all. Your interest in the Bible and willingness to ask questions, and then the willingness of the class to let us go down a few rabbit holes. And my job is to see we don't get too far down that rabbit hole and break it back. But sometimes I let us go astray, and I put astray in quotation marks because I'll hear the question, I'll say, that's a good this is a good teaching moment, or this is something we really want to learn, so at the expense of what we're already talking, and then we always somehow bring it back together. So just wanted to say that.
Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary on Mother's Day. So we'll keep going. As long as you keep coming, I'll keep teaching as long as I'm able to do so. We spent the last month and a half working on the different types of English translations of the Bible, and right or wrong, perfect, imperfect, we've tried to categorize the translations, and we also have learned, well, it's not always easy to do that. If we try to pigeonhole the new RSV and word-for-word translations every now and then, it might verge into a thought-for-thought translation. Or if we try to pigeonhole the New Living Translation into a thought-for-thought category, there'll be times we see it resembles a paraphrase. And it just goes back and forth. Every verse is different, and so the translator has to make these decisions, as they go. But I think hopefully it has been, well, I ask you, has it been helpful to take all the translations that are out there and look at 3 categories of translations and then a paraphrase? I put paraphrase up. So for the most part, that's been helpful. And then I think you have understood that this isn't perfect categorization. There, translation to weave in and out, but it's a place to start. So what we did word for word, and then we looked at the Greek in Matthew 1:18, and then the translation. I chose a word for word translation. Then we did thought for thought, and we compared that. to the Greek. Then we did a balance, compared that to the Greek. Then we did a paraphrase, compared that to the Greek. Now, what I want to do here, we'll choose a passage, and now we'll be able to go down through all the different types of translations in 1 or 2 or 3 sessions, however long it takes, and you have it all on one page, so you can compare. Now, as we compare translations, and this might be difficult because most of you don't know Greek, but that's what we're concerned about, how the translations work with the Greek. What we don't want to do is go through and say, oh, well, I like the wording of this translation better than that wording. Well, yeah, we can do a little bit of that, but if a translation, you like the wording, but if that wording isn't even close to the Greek, then we're out in left field. So then the question came up last time, well, how do we do that if we don't know the Greek? And so the best thing to do is to take a good word for word translation that you like, the King James Version, the New Revised Standard Version, and so forth. There's a number of word for word translations. You start there. And then when you start getting into thought for thought translation, you might be able to tell how far away they're straying. But you might not either. So we do the best we can. But the goal of this exercise is just to see how different, now that we've talked about the different types of translations, let's see them in action. So we'll take Matthew 16, verse 24. And then if you look on the back of the handout, we'll do an Old Testament passage, Genesis, 25:30. There's some really interesting and I'll say fun stuff in that passage.
I love that verse.
Yeah, well, yeah, once you get to read it, because there's some things in that verse you just can't translate. It won't make sense. So, and then that helps us pull into the Hebrew language. It pulls us into the Hebrew language because then you learn some things about the Hebrew language that you don't necessarily know. But let's start with Matthew. And we want to start with the Greek, which is what we've done. Now, I have the Greek printed there, which if you don't know Greek, that's not going to make any sense to you. But I do want to go over some things. And then right below that, I have as much of a literal translation as I could come up with. So, and this is Matthew 16:24. You're going to know this verse. Then Jesus said to his disciples. Now we come to an interesting grammar construction. We have a conjunction, and then we have an indefinite pronoun. You might not remember what those are from your English grammar. When I was taking Greek, my first Greek class, professor said that when you're done this class, you're going to know more about the English grammar than you have in quite a while. Because we learned it in school, and you know what an indefinite pronoun is. A pronoun is he, she, you, we. An indefinite pronoun will be anyone or whoever. Still a pronoun, but it's indefinite, it's vague. And that's what we have here, but we also have a conjunction. Do you know what a conjunction is? And, but, and in this case, it's if. So we have these two words in Greek. So however you want to translate that, whoever, some translations are going to say if any. Now the way I translated it, and I'm kind of rethinking that now that I see the importance of the juncture, but then if you say whoever, that kind of brings in the conjunction in a little way. You don't need it, but if you say, if anyone desires, or if any wants to come after me, then that emphasizes a conjunction. If I say whoever, then I don't need to say if, it doesn't make sense, if whoever. So whoever is kind of covering that. All right, whoever, if anyone, and remember, he doesn't say you. Jesus said to the disciples, he could say if you, and some are going to translate it this way, but the Greek doesn't say that. Jesus said to his disciples, and then he goes, what's the right word? More indirect, or he doesn't address them directly. He says, if anyone wants to follow me, or wants to come after me. So if anyone desires or wants to come after me, let that person, or let him, because this is grammar, or this is masculine. Let him deny himself. Let him, and I didn't do this in the translation, take up his cross and let him follow me. Those are all three the same type of verbs, and they're almost an indirect imperative. Let them, let him deny himself, let him take up his cross, and let him come after me. So, any questions about that? Let me talk about the word that says to deny himself, which is aparneomai. And it really means it can mean to deny, to renounce, to act in a wholly selfless manner. And so it'll be interesting how different translations choose to do that. Because of the King James, the first thing that comes to mind is deny oneself, or deny himself. But some of the thought translations are going to be a bit more creative as to what to do with that. The next verb is arrow, and it means to take up. So let him deny himself, take up, lift up, pick up, take or carry along. So let him deny himself, and then what does it mean to take up your cross? So, and that gets theologically, we have to see, well, Jesus died on the cross. So what does it mean? And then, within the context of this verse, we might be able to come up with some of that.
David, I have a question. In the Greek, I'm assuming that word was cross, the noun was cross.
Yeah, it's a stauron, the Greek word for cross, it's stauron.
And you know how we have words that mean different things. Could it mean something else, or is it like the cross that Jesus hung on?
It's the cross that Jesus hung on. That was a symbol at that time, and people were executed on the cross, and the cross is, that's what, it's in the New Testament. So stauron is the Greek word, and in this context, that's what we're talking about.
So when he says deny yourself, it's almost like go ahead and die on the cross.
Well,
Which is metaphorical.
yeah,
Well, yes, it's
it's
metaphorical,
metaphorical,
but
but
it's a big deal.
yeah, some translations will say suffer. And we talk about, and when we get into the interpreting this passage, okay, do we all have to die? Because we don't think God's going to resurrect us. God resurrected Jesus. But and there are people who have died for the sake of following Jesus. I mean, you have to make a decision. Dietrich Bonhoeffer would be a good example, but if you've seen the movie Bonhoeffer, but there's tons of people who have died for the sake of their faith, for the sake of following Jesus, because sometimes following Christ does mean being a Christian isn't going to be a bunch of roses on Mother's Day. I mean, it could be Hannah.
In this Anabaptist Bible, I think it's the same as CED.
It is, that's your translation in the Baptist Bible. Okay,
Yeah,
and it says cross.
who'd like to come after me must say no to himself.
Okay, we'll get there. We'll get
Yeah.
there. Because I actually had the CEB on this list.
Yeah, but it says say no to themselves.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? I think that's all I need to cover here for.
I have a question,
Yeah.
because you're ending it. I just thought it was interesting, in the NIV from 2011, I think
Yeah.
that's the first place I noticed it. It says, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves, where the other versions prior to that do not use the word must.
Well, and they don't use the word disciple. See, they're taking the noun disciple and they're substituting it for the verb. Because he's saying, if anyone wants to come after me. Now, does that mean come after me after I'm gone? Or does that mean follow me? The context of this passage means, if anyone wants to follow me. And some of your and we're gonna go through each translation, and some of them will use the word disciple, some of them will use the word follower, and they'll take out the verb. If anyone wants to be one of my followers, if anyone wants to be a disciple of mine, but that's not, follower isn't here. The word follow is here at the end, but not in the beginning. And the word disciple isn't there. So that's where you get into a thought for thought translation. The word for word translations aren't going to do that. But and they're trying to clarify a little bit more what does he mean when he says if anyone wants to come after me? And then they're in the context of that verse, they're saying they're using the word follower.
I just thought the word must is so much stronger than.
Yeah, and
some of the other-
I don't think that's there, or is it?
Well,
Whoever desires to come after me. Well, okay, where were you there?
Strong, I didn't think, the first.
Yeah,
one.
must deny themselves. Here's what the Greek verb says, let him deny himself. And that kind of has an imperative tone, which means, you know what imperative is? It's more of a command. It means do this. Now, this is the way the tense in the Greek is used here, it's more subtle. Instead of saying, well, it's because he's talking in the third person, let him. Now, if he was talking in the second person, he would, okay, if you want to come after me, you deny yourself. And you could throw must in there, but that's not in the Greek.
Well, I'm wondering about the word after, you have to come after me. Does that mean now when I'm alive, or when I'm dead, or does it mean with me, or just?
Yeah, I was hinting at that. Does this mean come after me when I'm gone? And I looked that up. Let's see, did I write anything down on that? Oh, yeah, I did. After is really a preposition, but there are two types of prepositions. There's a proper preposition, which is like, I went to the store, or I went after Jake went or something like that. So that's proper preposition. This is an adverbial preposition where it's an adverb modifies a verb and an adjective modifies a noun. You with me on that? Okay. So this is modifying in a sense, in a prepositional way, the verb. If anyone wants to come after me. It's not modifying a noun, it's an adverbial preposition. And that doesn't necessarily help with the meaning, we still with your question, but it does help us to understand the grammar and how it's being used. So it's an adverbial preposition, you know how we wanna translate that, it means to come after, it means after. And then and I'm going to suggest, Becky, because of the context of the text, deny himself, take up his cross, follow me, then if anyone wants to come after me and follow me, and that's what a lot of the translations do. They'll say, you want to be my follower, and that's what they've done. And so they take to come after me. And then they throw that noun in there and take the verb.
But I mean, physically come after, you just as in front and turn behind,
Yeah,
walk around like this.
yeah, it's probably metaphorical in a sense to follow, you know, but yeah, if you've come this far. If you want to continue to follow me, now I'm getting into a thought for thought, but if you want to continue to follow me, this is it. You have to deny yourself, you have to take up your cross, and you have to follow me. If you want to be one of mine, if you want to come after me. Notice, because to come after, you have that, and then you have the Greek word follow later on at the end.
So those are two different words.
Well, yeah,
In Greek.
they're two different words in Greek. If anyone wants to come after me, so this is a good question, and then we're not really going to solve it. The translator then, and gives you an idea of what translators have to do. Then the translators, they have to choose. Am I going to go this way with the translation? Am I going to go that way with the translation? So that's and this is what hopefully this is helpful. Allie, did you have something?
Yeah, this is a bit random to what everyone else was talking about. So in English, we use quotation marks for things, and I noticed all the translations have quotation marks, and so does yours. Does Greek have like a version of that to like separate what is like being spoken?
Well, Greek does not have quotations.
Did they do something else?
No, I mean, and the ancient manuscripts didn't have any punctuation. So,
No, like no.
no, so the translator had to figure that out.
Does Greek have punctuation usually?
Well, I think, now more modern.
Someone.
I don't know.
I don't think we locked the,
She wants to come in.
yes,
I wanted to join you guys.
yeah. Come on in.
Come on in.
Let's see, where we
Yeah.
go?
Right here.
How about over here? Are you not moving forward?
Yeah.
Why don't you
How about
sit
right
over
there?
here?
Why would someone write something with no punctuation?
Didn't think about it.
Was punctuation not used at the time?
Okay, here's a handout.
Just figured it out.
And if you'll sign.
Right, but like I don't know, even when I'm writing my journal, I don't feel
Or
it.
not.
This, I don't put punctuation.
Take
Like,
this,
what is-
yeah.
Made sense to them.
What's for what, for why though?
Like, David, isn't there a comma
It's easy
there
for
and a
us.
period in the Greek?
Yeah, well, no, not in the Greek, no, these are things that the translator puts in.
So you typed it on the Greek though, on.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean,
Oh, so you just put that.
no, okay. The ancient manuscript didn't have it. And then as the manuscript tradition developed, then at some point, scholars put these punctuations in. So my modern not modern Greek, but my modern, biblical Greek Bible has these translations.
I just think without punctuation, my goodness, there'd be so many ways of translating.
Yeah,
something.
There
without,
would be, yeah, and you have to
Well, they
figure
probably have
things
like a
out,
space between.
but they just kinda knew.
was that a thing back then? So like if I wasn't writing Bible stuff, like was I just not using punctuation?
Yeah, yeah.
Why?
Oh, because they knew it, they knew it,
They were smart.
they
This is, I
didn't
think,
it.
was that a thing in other
Here's a
languages?
parallel, well, in the Hebrew manuscript, the ancient Hebrew manuscripts were consonantal manuscripts, they had no vowels.
Consonant, what is that word?
Consonant, you have a consonant,
Consonant and a
which
vowel.
is,
Yeah.
B,
Yeah.
C, D,
No
and your vowels are A, E, I, O, U. A, E, I, O, U, but in Hebrew, your vowels came under, let's say, the word work. The bar. That means work. But if I wanna put vowels in there, it would be like that, the bar. But in the Hebrew, ancient Hebrew manuscript, those vowels are missing. So you had to figure it out. And they figured it out because that's how they were taught it. They knew.
Do you think,
There are so many rules with English that are similar,
I
where
don't
like,
know, do
Yeah.
we just know them.
yeah, we,
And other people are like, that makes no sense, we're like, well, you just won't get it.
do you think any of the translation has been like messed up by missing punctuation?
Oh, that's a good question.
Like-
yes and no. I mean, there comes to a point where we all kind of, at some point, we pretty much agree. When it says, Jesus said to his disciples, and then he says this phrase, if anyone wants to come after me, everyone agrees there should be quotation marks. And then usually everyone agrees that we've come to an end of a sentence because a new sentence has begun, the context suggests that, and so a lot of work has been done over the years, and then, as I say, we come up with a consensus now. Well, you might find in comparing translations, some might put a period where others put a comma and vice versa, so again, these are decisions a translator has to make.
Thank you.
Yeah.
If you go on the internet, look for images of the oldest manuscripts, it gets even more interesting. All capital letters and no breaks between words. It's just letter, 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 letter.
What do I Google to find that?
The British Museum has one of the manuscripts.
That was actually my next question is like, was there spaces like for like, did they like make a break between like chunks or was it literally just like?
It's usually columns that are just full, like 3 or 4 columns per page, usually 3 or 4 columns per page. And it's just full mass of letters.
Yeah.
But that,
And you have to
then you read down the column?
Read
Or you
left
read
and
it
right,
right.
you go,
Yeah.
well, it's even where some go back and forth. Like,
Yeah.
wow.
Right.
Yeah,
Read these?
no.
No.
No, we, see, we have been given,
Wait, so they're in columns, but you still read left to right?
Yeah, but
Yes,
then
Why-
you said some of the ones.
Why are they in columns then?
well,
Your Bible.
that's just how they wrote. Now,
My big one.
here's my Greek Bible. And it reads like a book would read today.
Yeah.
There's no columns and the punctuation's there. And so, people really learn hard or diligently how to read from the manuscripts. That's a art, that's a discipline all in itself. I don't read ancient manuscripts. Some of the letters I would recognize, especially in Hebrew. Different manuscripts had different lettering. And so, so if you want to read the Hebrew and the Greek, people have done a lot of work to make it easy for us. I have a Hebrew Bible, didn't bring it with me. It's in my computer though, which I think I did forget. And then, so we might be getting a little off topic, but again, this is a,
On the other side.
You dropped something on the other side of your
Yeah.
chair.
well, I knew it went, and then once it goes down, it takes, you don't know where it's gonna go. Yes,
I do not remember the exact scripture. And maybe you heard Dad did do this, but I don't think so. You came along later. But when I was a kid, he used to talk, when he was talking about punctuation. There is a verse somewhere in one of the letters in the New Testament.
yeah,
And it's, let him that steals, steal no more, working with his hands, or something like that. Dad said, let him that steal, no more working with his hands. So it's where you put the punctuation.
and and he did that with English and we can do that. Punctuation is important, but again, there's consensus.
So when the translators are making, like, they're translating Greek to English, are they translating from like these manuscripts that are just in huge chunks, or are they translating from like that?
Or they're translating.
Oh.
Because every now and then, I mean, if there's a problem that people can't agree on, then maybe a translator will go and look at a manuscript and say, okay, I wanna investigate this for myself. But for the most part, translators are translating from a, universally accepted Greek Bible. I mean, there's several Greek Bibles, this isn't the only
I got
one.
it.
This was put out by, Nestle Holland, or by them, and then there's United Bible Societies has a Greek Bible, but they're all pretty close. And, but then, there's an apparatus at the bottom, and then if you wanna get into the manuscripts, it does say, well, this manuscript does this manuscript does that, so it tells you some of that, but, you know, I don't have access to the manuscripts. I mean, if you want access to them, you have to have a book that has, buy a book that has them, or as Joe said, you have to go to the museum.
They have pictures on
Got
their
a copy.
website.
So,
Really?
I'm sure it's all been scanned in.
Yeah, it's just like just look at the chunks of text.
Wow.
well,
Like footnotes or?
well, these are footnotes to the Greek.
No, not even words, like, it's just solid.
And some others.
And I don't-
So this refer apparatus was so great.
Yeah.
As opposed to like.
Well, this says too, so that.
It's literally the opposite, like, language to a point now where we actually have more complex ways of writing things down so that it's easier.
Oh, we.
An apparatus.
That's just.
The way.
And because it gets into,
That's amazing.
different manuscripts, it's more than just.
And they had 100 years.
This is, an apparatus is very.
That's their job. They had some wealthy who couldn't that page, where the church, like, saved them alive.
Dave.
One more.
Just an aside,
Okay, let's come back as a group.
just an aside, my mother-in-law, when she would write, she never punctuated.
Okay,
So she went along,
how did you know?
well, you sort of guessed.
You said, yeah, you guessed and you figured it out.
Maybe she'll have a capital for when we were going or something. But But yeah,
figure it out.
yeah, figured out, and I don't know why, cause she had an education, I mean, she had high school, I think, up to high school. It just didn't stick with her, I guess.
Right. Well, it wasn't,
Grandma's German.
yeah, the punctuation, maybe she didn't know it, it didn't stick with her, it wasn't. Okay, so let's keep going. Now, the King James Version. We'll start there. Now, I have two word for word translations. King James and New RSV, New Revised Standard Version, updated edition. Then I have two balanced translations, which will be a balance between word for word and thought for thought, which is the NIV 2011 edition and the Common English Bible. And then we have two thought for thought translations, the New Living Translation, the Contemporary English Version, and then we have a paraphrase, the Message. So that's what you have on your handout. So let's start with the King James.
A question in the Message. And it says, then Jesus went to work on his disciples.
Well,
Wouldn't there be a better word to work on?
we're gonna have to wait till we get there.
Okay, I thought we were there.
No, we're starting with the King James.
Okay,
Yeah, and we're gonna go down through each one.
okay.
Now, we can skip around if you want to, but that's interesting. Now, remember what a paraphrase is. Paraphrase is not, I don't call a paraphrase a translation. So,
It doesn't look like that.
so when he says, Jesus went to work on his disciples, he's definitely,
After,
yeah.
well, he wanted to teach.
Exactly, so it's not a bad paraphrase. I mean, when you think about it and in the context and what he's really saying. This is what you gotta do. So he's saying he went to work on his disciples because this isn't easy. Okay, so, but yeah, let's try this. Because there are some things I wanna talk about each translation and what they do. Then, Jesus said to his disciples, if any man will come after me. Now, did anyone pick up on the fact that the word man is in quotation marks, or not quotation, italics, sorry, italics.
Yeah.
Now, the King James does this. And I appreciate it. When they choose to put a word in there and it's not in the Greek, they will put it in italics. They will italicize it. So the word man is not there. What is there is if anyone, remember the conjunction and the indefinite pronoun? It doesn't say man. It says if anyone. And I don't know why they did that. I guess they felt because the other verbs and pronouns are singular masculine, him, and so forth, himself and all that. So, they may have thought it was important to put man. Some of the translations here want to go in a more inclusive way, so it's very convenient for them because it's indefinite. It's very convenient for them to make it inclusive. But when they come to the pronouns, if you'll find out, they have to make a decision.
I could have said in person.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
that's.
Not in 1611 or 1769. They're not going to say that. So.
Wasn't, that is interesting.
So it's not there because the two words for man, anthropos, which really means people, but we use it as man. And then there's a Greek word for male, which is aner, which really means man.
Oh, that's not in.
No, anthropos, I mean, the only thing is there is it's a tis, which means a is the conjunction and tis is the indefinite pronoun, and it means whoever or anyone. it doesn't mean man, so man is not there, and that's why they put it in italics. So if you're reading the King James, that's important to know, anything is in italics, they felt a need to put that word there, but they're being transparent in saying this was not in the Greek. Okay, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross and follow me. So that's pretty much a basic word for word translation. The only difference is they put in man, and then they translated it differently than I did. I said whoever, and they're basically saying if anyone or if any man. So you can translate it either way. But I don't really have anything more to say about it than that. It's a pretty good word for word translation, and I've told you that when I'm reading Hebrew and Greek for myself, and and I'm not quite sure, I don't quite understand the grammar or whatever, and I'm struggling with it, and I want a good word for word translation. King James isn't a bad place to start. I mean, there are there are downsides to King James because, we know a lot more about the languages than we did in 1611 and 1769. And I say 1769 because there were a lot of editions for the King James version from 1611 up to 1769. And then they pretty much worked all the bugs out and got it all going. And there weren't hardly any editions from 1769.
Until they did the Cambridge paragraph version in
Which was?
1800.
Okay, but
They declared was the
Yeah.
final.
Well, I would say the word man is a bug, a big bug.
I'm with her, yeah, don't tell me that's word for word. That's not word for word.
well, yeah, that's the only issue that we have here. But again, 1769, 1811, and Joe might wanna contest you with that, go ahead.
The one thing about man, I remember a discussion in fourth grade where we had this issue, what does man mean? And the teacher emphasized it has two meanings. And you have to determine it means all humans, both
Mankind.
boys and girls, or if it meant a brother or a father only.
Exclusively male.
Right, but the general context would tell you which way to take it. And I know, and again, through my career in academia, it was the generic human was part of that word, and you had to use context to figure it out. Then by the 1980s, 90s, the English department at Hershey would not allow the generic use of man for generic human. It had to be male only. And they were really fussing about this in late 80s, early 90s, and he started really fussing about it.
Now, I went to seminary in the 80s and then grad school in the 90s, and we were working really hard at inclusive language. And then you see that with the new revised standard version came out in '89, which was the revision of the revised standard version. And so they went inclusive, and then we talked about how the NIV came out in 2011, which was a revision of the 1978 edition, and they became inclusive.
Well, it just shows how language changes.
So, language changes, and then, there's this whole thing about whether or not you're woke. And
Wait a minute. I know. We got my woke up. What in the world woke?
well, that means, or you're
Depends on the
using correct language, and you're trying to be sensitive, like the EDI.
They're shortening the word awake, so like you're aware
Aware.
of like modern issues.
Sorry.
Well, we're glad you came.
Sorry.
Yeah, okay, we're glad you came.
Sorry.
Woke is.
No, go ahead. Yeah, you're fine.
I'm gonna be back.
Okay, anytime, we're here,
Soon over.
we're here, come back anytime.
Is Jason here?
No, he's not here.
The pastor,
Well,
Jason?
no, he's not here.
She's not here.
Okay, thank
It's in
you.
the building.
Oh, he's in the building, but he's not in this
Yeah.
class. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dad.
Yeah.
The,
Message.
Oh, there we go.
the history of the word
Here or
woke
here.
is very interesting because it comes out of the African American culture, which means to wake up and be aware. It's a beautiful use to understand reality. Woke up, got it real. And I think that word has just been ruined.
It has.
Yeah, it's become a dirty word.
Yeah.
Jane Fonda recently received an award at one of these things, and she said, "Whoa, just means, you give a damn." I mean, that's what she said, and she's right, I mean, excuse the curse word, it means you care. PC, politically correct, I threw those initials out long ago and said, P stands for polite and C stands for current. I wanna be polite and I wanna be current. I wanna be sensitive to others. I'm not gonna call someone an antiquated name. Like I'm gonna call someone an African American and not a Negro. And whatever. I'm gonna be polite and I'm gonna be current. And this whole thing, you know, well, there's more that can be said, but so we're gonna find in these translations, again, I'm kind of defending a little bit the King James because that's how you talk back then. But we try to correct that a little bit and we're now 2025 and we do try to be more inclusive when it calls for it. And what you're gonna find here is some of these translations that try to be inclusive, do they go too far by putting a word in there that isn't in the Greek? And then they have to decide.
Well, see, I think so many people take the Bible literally, and that's what I object to the word man. Take that literally, it means male, right?
Right.
So that's why I object to it.
Well, and it's like Joe said, though, but when we come to the word man, I mean, I stopped using the word man or mankind a long time ago. I use humanity or we or all. But if you take the word man, if you have an understanding, and that's what it comes down to, we have to agree or not, but if we all agree that mankind means people, it doesn't mean, see.
Yeah, I understand that, but not everyone agrees,
Yes, that's right.
and that's the problem.
And there are some people, especially who are oppressive toward women, when it says man
It
or
says right there.
mankind, it doesn't mean female. And so they don't make the distinction, you know, that you, yeah. Glenn.
In German, which is a Germanic language,
Bench.
der Mann. Capital M-A-N-N, der Mann, the man, Mann. Also, there's a word Mann, lowercase m-a-n, Mann, that means one, as in someone. Not one, but someone. The same phonetic word has those two different meanings and it's even spelled and written differently. But when that same Germanic language gets printed in English, you don't have that distinction.
Right.
So it's really two different words that sound alike. That
Right.
in English get written the same way.
Well,
And there's another word for man in German, it means Mensch.
Which can mean man, guy, chump.
Yeah. Because when I was in seminary and I took classes from one of the seminarian's spouses and she taught some of us German and I remember her, he dropped something or whatever and she says, "Oh, Mensch," just like we would say, "Oh, man."
Steve, okay, what is a Latin word? I've forgotten my Latin for man.
I don't know.
I mean, well, that's what the Catholics use
Well,
in,
good enough, yeah.
but I mean, I just wondered what the Latin, anybody else remember their Latin?
Well, I think this is kind of universal. It's going to play out in other languages.
There are a lot of classic literature and poetry that be very difficult to change. In college, there were a lot of books that if they had to change the translation, would be seems like it changed the meaning of a lot of the classic literature.
Well, and we're going to stick with the Bible, but yeah, that's true. You know, and that's what we're talking about here. You know, when you're translating, how do you do it? You have to make decisions. You have to make choices. Okay, let's just start with the new RSV. We only have a few minutes left, so we might not make it through, but let's just at least read it and compare it to the Greek. In the Greek, then Jesus said to his disciples, verbatim in new RSV updated edition, then what they say, if any wish to come after me. So instead of if anyone desires, the King James did say if any man will come after me. But the Greek word here, it means to desire, to want, to wish, yeah. So if any wish to come after me, if anybody want, if any, and they leave it at any, they don't say anyone, you know, they're just, so that, for the translators, that would be men or women. And if any wish to come after me, then what do they do? Because let him, because the Greek says, let him deny himself, and they go inclusive by saying, let them. So they go plural when the Greek says singular. So this is a change. And it's a change to be inclusive, and it's not consistent with the Greek, but they made a decision, we're going to be inclusive. So let them deny themselves, take up their cross. So all the pronouns from there on become plural, inclusive plural, instead of because in English, them is common. It's you don't, just like you. It's not, if I say you, it's the context that tells me whether I'm talking to you, a group of women, or you, a group of men, or a co-ed group together. And the same thing with them. You don't have masculine and singular with men, them. It's just,
Well, there's an exception there. In today's world, transgender is them,
okay,
they and them.
Yeah.
If you're speaking of one transgender person.
Yeah.
Some of them go
Right,
by
right.
they and them.
sure. Because they're transgender sometimes.
I don't know why.
Well, sometimes transgender means you've gone from one sex to another, but when they say they're not denying the original sex and then
Often they're identifying as non-binary,
Yeah.
so they do not, they're not saying that I have transitioned to one way or another, they're saying I don't identify with either gender.
or both.
Or both,
Yeah.
the transgender would identify with both, I think.
Not necessarily.
Well,
So I have to not trans.
Okay, I just want to bring it to a close.
Yeah.
This has been a good discussion, I think. Do you like going this way? And even though you all can't read Greek, but you know, you're seeing how you pick up a Bible. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of decisions, a lot of research, a lot has gone into a translation. And that's kind of why I'm a little leery about a paraphrase, because it's usually just one person. And what does it take to come up with a credible translation? It's a lot, so.
Makes me feel like it really, your faith has to be in action.
Yeah.
To trust that somebody, many people will
Well,
find.
and we do. I mean, evangelicals go more to the English Standard Version. They used to go to the New International Version. So they trust that. And the people who are translating that are within their framework. And then if you want a more academic or mainstream Bible, then who are SB is the way to go. And so, you know, you do trust, there has to be trust because we all don't have the knowledge and the tool to come up with our own translation or come up with our own Greek Bible. Yeah, I can translate Hebrew and Greek, but I'm not going back to the original manuscripts. I'm trusting, you know, the work behind the contemporary Greek and Hebrew Bibles that I have, so. This is a lot of fun for me. I know it's kind of nerdy, but it's
Did I maybe I shared this already, I don't remember, but I was always a King James person, so I was a King James person. About 20 years ago, my PTC pastor said, we're gonna switch to NLT.
New Living Translation.
Yeah, and so I just did it because the pastor said it. And then, in March, I think it was February or March, I started talking to David and I'm like, why do I, read the NLT? Because Pastor Steve said so. And so I called him up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't been in that church for nearly 20 years and I called him up and I'm like, why? And it was because he is a scholar and he knew that the translation was on the evangelical side, that it was more conservative.
Yeah.
So I think it is good to know when you pick a translation, like you taught us before, read the preface.
You read the preface, it'll tell you for the most. Okay, I'm gonna let you go. Go ahead, George.
You know, I'm wondering, we discuss it in here, or when I hear, you're saying we're not translators. You're a translator. And so we do paraphrase, and it seems to me it's so important to realize who we're with when we discuss this, meaning where's the truth? Well, it comes out of our relationship with each other.
Yeah, it does.
And it seems to me that that's what happened back 2,000 years ago. That people got together. It wasn't just one person. You know,
Right.
75% of the people that were sitting there
Right.
say, yeah, this is the truth. Do you?
Oh, I understand. Can you imagine me teaching this class in some other brethren congregations that you know that are very different than the E-Town congregation? I'm going to be very careful not to use the word conservative or liberal, but just who this would not go over very well in some congregations. It goes over well here because
We're nerdy.
no, well, because you want to learn in this way, and it doesn't threaten your faith or anything like that, having these kinds of conversations. So, and notice, not everyone in the congregation is here. not everyone is interested in the Bible in the way that you all here. You're here because you wanna learn. Some people aren't as Bible oriented, and that's okay. So it's just, I don't know. I'm glad you all come. Otherwise, I couldn't teach you.
It's hard to put your finger on the.
Yeah.
The truth is.
Yeah, what is the truth? And everyone asks that question.
It's
But we know the answer is 42.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hitchhiker's Guide to the
I thought you were going off at Jackie Robinson. I mean, how does that mean?
I was thinking Donald Trump.
No, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Where'd you go?